What's going on, Spurs fans? Good evening and welcome to the podcast. Of course, it's Stateside Footy, and I am your boy, Steve. Thank you for tuning in. I know it's a little late over there across the pond, but for those that decided to stay up and join me tonight, we're very well appreciated. And also a quick good evening to those that are tuning in on TikTok Live. Of course, I do appreciate all of your guys' views and all that good stuff. And man, let me tell you, I am absolutely fired up because tomorrow the Premier League season kicks off. And of course, our Spurs are at the G-Tech taking on what I consider a pretty solid Brentford team. But that being said, Spurs are actually pretty goddamn good when it comes to opening day of the Premier League. Historically, they always have seemed to do well. So from that standpoint, listen, man, it's going to be absolute fireworks tomorrow. And of course, when it comes to this season preview, we're going to be covering a few different topics tonight, just not tomorrow's match against Brentford. Before I begin, please do me a favor and please make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, and also hit the notification bell as well too. And if you are tuning in on TikTok Live, the link is in the description for you guys to head on over. All right, let's go ahead and get into it because, quite frankly, today was quite interesting as Spurs apparently made it official today as Savinho is now a member of the Tottenham Hotspur. And listen, I've been vocal about this quite a bit. I do not rate Savinho at all. And for the price that we're paying, which to me is a little bit of an overpay, it just is what it is, right? I think Spurs needed an upgrade off the left-hand side, and of course, we still have no idea if Cody Gakpo is eventually going to be coming in. Now, granted, these conceivably will get Omar Mamouche done as well too, and from that standpoint, it is conceivable that at that stage, maybe Liverpool comes down a little bit on the price because at that point, we're not necessarily going to be as desperate as we were. Considering these two are through the door, and who knows, maybe at that stage we actually get Gakpo at a reasonable price. We don't know. Hopefully that does happen because, again, I do not rate Savinho, and this is just my own personal opinion. I know that a lot of Spurs fans have been wanting this for a month now. Some of you guys have been wanting it a year since last summer when news first announced. That Spurs were interested in Savinho. Obviously, last summer it didn't necessarily work out. We finally got it done. I believe the price is at £75 million plus 5 of add-ons. And I think that's just an absolute overreach. Listen, here's the thing. At this stage, a guy like Matisse Tell is not a finished product yet. And so from that standpoint, the desire to actually get somebody through the door that can actually play on a week-to-week basis was something that Spurs were looking for. Okay, fair enough. My problem with Savinho is he doesn't score goals. And it just is what it is. Me personally, we already have one of those wingers in Mohamed Kudus, a guy that has top-end speed, goes well in it against defenders. But that being said, I don't like Savinho's passing ability, and more to the point, there is no end product. And so from that standpoint, especially when you consider what was needed to get done in this window, and yes, restructuring the defense was definitely up there. Retooling the midfield, 100% goes without saying. But what this team absolutely needed was goals. That is at the end of this. That's the end of the discussion. And when you're talking about the attacking four, we needed at least 30 goals this summer coming through the door. And let's be perfectly honest, Savinho doesn't do it for me. As a matter of fact, here's the reason why I don't like Savinho. Now, there are counter arguments to be made about this. This is just my personal opinion, but understand that Manchester City took a flyer on Savinho coming from Sevilla a few years back, where me personally, I thought that was kind of his level. He had one very good season down in Spain. Previously coming from the Netherlands, he gets to Manchester City, and it was quickly discovered that, quite honestly, he was not good enough to be at Man City. The expectations, the talent level is just a little bit higher, and we saw this over the course of the last couple seasons when they started getting injuries off the left side. Pep Guardiola routinely would pass over Savinho for another player. And when it came to the transfer window, they had no problem going out there and retooling that position. And to me, that is a non-starter for me, because as you know, Pep Guardiola is, conceivably the best coach in the world. And if at that stage, if this dude is, if this dude doesn't rate Savinho, I don't think he's going to be the dude that everybody thinks he's going to be. The counter argument to make is that we have Roberto De Zerbi, and there's something about Savinho that De Zerbi likes. Okay, what does he do good? He's pacey. He has the top end speed, where that is a good part of his game, where for a fact that he's going to be able to get up and down that left side. Okay, that's great. He's very good 1v1 against defenders. Okay, so from that standpoint, he's going to be able to close down defenders. He's going to be able to attack the end line. But he does not pass the ball well. He's not that great of a passer. And there's also the fact that he doesn't score goals. And so from that standpoint, I don't understand the fascination with a guy like Savinho. Now, again, I'm not trying to come here and take a piss over a new signing, but that being said, it comes with a lot of buyer beware, and it just is what it is. I never understood the fascination with this guy. Yes, it's like, okay, cool. His first touch is good. I can't deny it. I'm not going to deny it. But at the end of the day, we need at least 10 goals from each of our wingers. And that's not something that Savinho has done on the Premier League level. And now all of a sudden we paid 75 plus 5 for a dude that doesn't score goals. I just, I hope I'm proven wrong. I really hope that I'm proven wrong, but there's a big part of me that says come January, we're going to be looking for another left winger. And of course, in the summer, we're going to be looking to replace Savinho, because I just do not see this working. As a matter of fact, if we end up with a dude like Cody Gakpo, he's going to be a backup to Cody Gakpo when it's all said and done, especially when, Mohamed Kudus and Dejan Kulusevski come back, whenever that is going to be, whether that's going to be in November, whether that's going to be December, whatever the case may be, when we get both of those guys competing off the right-hand side. And if Cody Gakpo does come to Spurs, Savinho is going to be a very expensive rotational piece. And it just, listen, I just don't see it. I don't see it. Maybe you guys feel differently. Okay, fair enough. God bless. I just don't see it. The other piece of this conversation is Omar Mamouche, and it's a little bit different just considering of who Manchester City has as their starting nine, and of course that's Erling Haaland. And Omar Mamouche was never going to supplant Erling Haaland. He played a little bit off the left. He played a little bit in that 10 position, but his natural position is at that striker position, and that's also a position of need for this club, just considering, there's a lot of hesitancy when it comes to Dominic Solanke and Richarlison. That's understood. And I guess the common belief here is that if Omar Mamouche does get done, that probably means that Richarlison's days are numbered. Me personally, I actually like Omar Mamouche. I don't necessarily have a problem with him. One of the things that I worry a little bit about Marmouche is his consistency over long stretches. I question whether or not he's going to be able to be a full-fledged starter in this league. But the great part about this season is the fact that we don't have Europe. And outside of cup competitions, I think this is going to be easily navigatable for Roberto De Zerbi to be able to rotate based on opponent. To rotate to make sure that either or don't even reach that red line. And because of that, I think both Solanke and Omar Mamouche have the potential to actually have some pretty solid seasons. I personally believe that the striker position needs at least 30 goals. And so, from that standpoint, you're asking both of these guys to touch 15 goals. And of course, with Solanke, he had back-to-back, at least 15 goals in back-to-back seasons 2 and 3 years ago. And so at least you understand that, if Solanke can stay healthy, he's got it on his CV. And so there's something you can trust there. Last year was a little bit different, considering he was injured for a good portion of the season, never really got going. So you would probably assume that Solanke's coming into the season with something to prove. And Marmouche is just looking for a fresh start, just considering going to City probably wasn't the best move. But that being said, it's like, how are you going to turn down Manchester City? It's understandable, but this is an opportunity for him to come in, compete, and try to win that starting job. So me personally, I like everything about Omar Mamouche. I think he's got a nice touch around the net. The only problem that I have is whether or not he's capable of being a starter. But it just is what it is. I actually don't mind the addition of Omar Mamouche. But that being said, I'm actually praying that Cody Gakpo becomes a Spur, because I literally cannot can't even stomach the idea of having a dude off the left-hand side that just does not score goals. So from that standpoint, please, Cody Gakpo, yes, yes, yes. All right, so season preview, and of course tomorrow, the live stream here will be here on Stateside Footy, starting 12 o'clock Eastern here in the United States. So I'm looking forward to that. Spurs v Brentford, and that's going to be kind of an intriguing matchup. And of course, Savinho will not be available for that game. So that leaves an attacking four of most likely Richie DeMauro up top with, I would probably assume, Matisse Tell off the left and Mikey Moore off the right. It's going to be interesting to see who plays that 10 position. It looks like Roberto Zerbi kind of protected James Maddison this preseason, where Conor Gallagher got a lot of the minutes at that 10 position. And so naturally, you're probably assuming that maybe Gallagher starts with Maddison coming off in the second half. But that being said, it's like, for all intents and purposes of this conversation, it looks like James Maddison might be ready to go tomorrow. So that is a little bit better. And when you consider that, Fernandes and Tonali are going to be in that midfield, all of a sudden, that is going to be the strength of this engine for Tottenham Hotspur. And that actually has me absolutely excited for this season, because it's something that we haven't had in quite a long time. It's been an awful long time since we've had competent midfielders where, especially one of the things that we have been missing over the last couple of years is that fluidity in the center parts of the pitch. We just haven't really necessarily had it. It's one angle of the pitch that we just haven't been able to be direct in. And a lot of it is because we were playing midfielders that just flat out just weren't good enough. And that's no disrespect to Pat Sarr. It's no disrespect to Rodrigo Betancourt. It just is what it is. There are levels to this game, and they're very capable. It's just at this level, you have to be a little bit more than just capable. And so now all of a sudden, you have two midfielders that are going to be absolutely crucial when it comes to tight spaces in the press in the mid, to be able to retain the ball, but also progress it forward. And, having two guys like Tonali and Fernandes playing behind a guy like James Maddison is going to pay absolute huge dividends. But I want to start this conversation by talking about goals, because here's the interesting thing. I understand the vibes are at an all-time high right now, and that's just natural. We're at the beginning of a campaign coming off of two back-to-back 17th place finishes. Last year was a relegation scrap. The year before, at least we won a trophy, and that was an absolutely fantastic moment. But it's been a while since this team has really been on it. We can go back to the Maurizio Pochettino days where we're going into a season with high expectations, and you're looking at the starting 11 and you're kind of looking at the rotation where you're kind of like, oh, okay, well, this feels a little bit different because there's actual quality there. But the interesting thing about this is, over the course of the last couple seasons, the ability to consistently score goals has dipped. And I think it bottomed out last season where we just didn't have anything competent across the attacking three. I mean, it got so bad that we were playing Randall Kolo Muani off the right because we just didn't have any type of semblance of an attacker. And coming into this season, it's going to be a little bit different because, we're going to have Savinho at the very least, and who knows if we get Gakpo, the attacking three looks virtually different. And it probably looks a little bit better. At least it looks competent enough. if you're thinking, Gakpo, Marmoush, Savino off the right until Kudus Kulusevski comes back. And at that stage, it drastically changes. But as of right now, it's looking essentially it's essentially going to look like, until we actually get some clarification on Kudus and Kulusevski, it's looking like as of right now, it's going to be Matisse Tell off the left, a combination of Marmoush and Solanke up top, Savino off the right for a short period of time, and then that rotation at the 10 between James Maddison and Gallagher until Xavi Simons comes back, which is probably not going to be until December, January. And so at that stage, you're kind of looking at it like this could be a little problematic to start the season, because we're going to have it was the exact same thing last year where, relatively speaking, it's not a bad way to start the season. It's going to be, we're going to have an opportunity to bank some points early before we kind of get to that November, December, January portion of the schedule where games are going to be coming thick and fast, and we're playing opponents that may probably be a little bit better than us. And so we're going to have to, tread some water there for a little bit. And that has me concerned because you're asking guys that have been dealing with injuries the last couple seasons to stay healthy. You're asking a guy like Matisse Tell to do something that he, quite frankly, hasn't done yet. And then you're asking a guy like Savino to be a better version of himself, which he hasn't which we haven't seen in 3 seasons. And that has me a little concerned, because here's the thing. In order for Spurs to get to a European spot, we have to score 70 goals minimum. So I'm not even talking Champions League. I'm talking Europa League, or to be in a Conference League spot. We're going to have to be in that 60, 70 goal range. And I don't know if we've done enough. Who knows? Maybe, maybe things break right, we stay healthy, and guys rebound to have big years. I could be, that very well could happen. I also assume that we're going to be active in January as well too. Because we're not going to have the greatest summer in Enix history and then follow it up with absolutely nothing in January. There would be riots in the streets. But that being said, we're going to have to be able to get started early in the season. We're going to have to continue that pace in order for us to be able to stay into it. Most importantly, we're going to have to stay healthy in order to do that. And if you want to get to the Champions League, we're going to have to probably be in that 70 to 80 range. Because as of right now, I'm kind of looking at the top 4. And I'm looking at Manchester United, and I'm asking, are we better than Manchester United? I don't know. Are we better than City? Even if they lose Rodri? I don't know. Are we better than Liverpool? Maybe. I don't know, though. And are we better than Arsenal? Probably not. And we're going to have to play our best games against those 4. And then we're going to have to be 500 or better against the rest of the league. It's interesting when I'm looking at the Premier League table. I know for a fact that we're going to be better than Brighton. I know for a fact that we're probably going to be better than Bournemouth and Everton. It's okay, cool. So the question is there going to be enough juice worth the squeeze when it comes to teams like Chelsea, teams like Villa, we're going to be in direct competition for European places? Now, some will say, well, Villa had to sell a couple of their best players. Yeah, but still, they're still a very good team. and Chelsea's still Chelsea. We can't seem to figure out a way to beat those dudes, even if we're actually the better team coming into the match. Even if we're playing better, we still haven't figured out a way to beat them, and that's going to be concerning, because we're going to have to do it at some point this season. We're going to have to lay a marker down, and we're going to have to take it to them. At some point, we're going to have to be able to earn it, and that's what has me concerned, especially in the first half of the season. We're going to have to figure out a way to consistently score goals, and a lot of that is going to have to come through the midfield, and we're going to have that. That's, I guess, the one thing that actually has me excited, because the idea of our ability to play progressive passes through the center of the park with guys like Sandro Tonali and Mateus Fernandes, that actually has me excited, because it's one element that we just haven't seen in quite a long time. And I actually think that a guy like James Maddison is going to benefit a little bit from that. But also, Maddison is going to have to be far more consistent than the last time we saw him. And that was my big bugaboo with Maddison. It wasn't because of talent; it was just because of consistency. But ultimately, we're not going to see our best 11 until after the new year. I truly believe that, because we're not going to be able to get Xavi back until then. Who knows when we're going to get Kulusevski back? Although I think it's going to be sooner rather than later. But we're going to have to be able to hold the fort down until until one of two things happens. Either we actually get some of our better players back and get their form regained, or we hit the January window and we're going to be able to improve. Until then, that is, we're going to have to be within shouting distance when that happens. It's just absolutely true. We can't be in a position where we're dropping points or we're settling for ties. It's just not going to work out. It's just not going to work out the way fans think it's going to work out, because that's eventually what happens. Is if we can't figure out a way to be consistent when it comes to goal scoring, then we're going to find ourselves in that 8 to 12 position when it comes to January, and we're going to be trying to battle into those European spots for the rest of the season. A big part of me doesn't think it's going to work out. But that being said, what I'm hoping for is that our transfer window isn't done yet. That's what I'm hoping, because if we can figure out a way to get Marmoush done, and we can figure out a way to get Gakpo done, then everything goes out the window that I just said. Because at that stage, we're coming into the season with Gakpo off the left, Sabinho off the right, and a rotation of Solanke and Marmoush up top. And that is wholly night and day better, especially when you consider that left side. And now we have a competent attacking left side with Robertson and Gakpo, two guys that are very familiar with each other from their days at Liverpool. Those, I'm telling you, man, that would be a dream left side. And Gakpo, by the way, can score goals. And at that stage, you're kind of looking at 10 goals off the left. Who knows? Like, what I will say about Solanke is that I think it was 3 years ago, he scored 19 for Bournemouth, and followed that up his first year, which was kind of an injury-riddled season, but he scored 15. He's got it on his CV, and what I'm hoping this season is that he's got a chip on his shoulder. That's what I'm hoping, that he's got something to prove. Because let's be perfectly honest, the Spurs, I guess you can say the global fan base has taken a ginormous piss on Dominic Solanke. A lot of guys don't believe in him. A lot of guys believe that because he drops too deep, doesn't put himself in position to score goals, yada yada yada. And it's like, well, the good news is that we have multiple options that can actually facilitate that role. So if needed, Solanke can stay a little bit higher up. And if we actually have competent service coming from the wings, but also, again, that progressive movement through the middle of the pitch, that plays into Solanke's strength. And by the way, if he's being rotated with a guy like Omar Mamouche, we're probably going to see the best version of Solanke. And at that stage, all bets are off because he's got it on his CV. He's proved it. He might be good for 12 to 16 goals this season, which is that's exactly what you're looking for, out of a rotated striker. You're essentially splitting striker duties, and at that stage, you're kind of hoping a guy like Omar Mamouche can actually equal to that. And if we're getting consistent goal scoring from the striker position, again, which we haven't seen since the days of Harry Kane, it starts and ends right there. Let's see. Marmouche going to hit hard. Maybe. Here's the thing about Marmouche, though. He hasn't proven that he can be a consistent striker at the Premier League level. That's the only thing that makes me question it. I mean, last year, coming over in January, to Manchester City, I think he was a January signing. He was a January signing. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that is true. But of course, he was never going to overtake Erling Haaland at that position. So this is an opportunity for, I guess you can say, a clean start. But that being said, it's like the best course of action with these two is to use them in tandem. Use them appropriately against the right opponents. And me personally, I think you're going to get the very best. Not only are you going to mitigate the injury risk, but I also think you're going to see the very best out of them because they're going to be competing with each other. More so, if you ask me, than the competition. Let's see. We have Sean Hurl, who says, "Come on, you Spurs." I love it. Adrian from Spurs Diehards TTID. Good evening, Adrian. That was just on your show, bud. Bird on Banjo. Morning, all. Morning or good evening. And Sean Hurl says, "Hey, Steve, it's time to start the real De Zerbi era." Yeah, I'm actually kind of excited about this. When you look at his tactical acumen, what I like about him is I like the way he uses his midfield diamond, and I like the way that there's constant movement. And one of the things that I like about it is when defenders try to press high and box in midfields, it's the short passing that unlocks that box, and then the ball progresses high, and then it's a quick touch, and then the ball gets passed back, and then it's immediately played forward. And when the ball goes forward, the interesting thing is, defenders bite on that one touch, and then all of a sudden you get a player running in behind. The ball either gets played through or over the top, and all of a sudden, you actually have a mismatch. And so from that standpoint, man, there's going to be a lot of goals scored from this, from this team, not just with inside forwards, but also from inverted backs as well too. That, there's a good chance that Pedro Porro, might break his season goal scoring record. That's the interesting thing. It's like the number of different options that are going to go forward, and the way that certain players are inverted. It's going to be interesting to see exactly just who's going to be our goal scorers on a week-to-week basis. Let's see. The success of a player requires good coaching, a good fit, and patience in the fan base. Yeah, but patience is not exactly our virtue. Let's just say that, Sean. We can have good intentions from week to week, but that being said, this fan base lives or dies for every single weekend, and it's such an emotional roller coaster. You understand that better than There's a question from TikTok here, and it's Lemonu, who says, "Do I think Xabi will do good at Chelsea?" Interesting question. Right now, Chelsea's in an interesting position because as of right now, their ownership is they're going through some shit because of the dude Mark Walter, who is he is an owner along with Todd Bowley. I think they both have like what 12.5%, and I think that's what Blueco. Well, anyways, he is under investigation in the United States because apparently you're not allowed to use insurance revenue in order to buy in order to buy clubs. Apparently, that's a big no-no when it comes to the FBI, and so he had to sell the Lakers. It looks like he might have to sell the Dodgers, and he might have to sell his interest into Chelsea. And it's interesting when it comes to football clubs because if there is a little bit of a power struggle going on in the upper reaches of the club, it has a tendency to trickle down its way throughout the football club. And the interesting thing about Chelsea is when it comes to talent on the pitch, there really hasn't been a tremendous amount of drop off over the last 5 years. They have been active. They have again always went out and tried to buy the best players possible to try to keep pace, but for whatever reason, they just haven't been able to put it together. Xabi did very well in Germany, didn't last at Real Madrid because I think, unfortunately, with Real Madrid, the players have all the power, and he was not able to get buy-in at Real Madrid, and so of course that didn't necessarily work out. And so the question is whether or not he's going to get that same type of buy-in that is absolutely needed with a team like Chelsea. I guess we're going to find out. My gut instinct is that, number one, I don't think that they're going to win the league. And if they get buy-in for Xabi, if they buy into what he's asking them to do, can I see them being a top 6 team? Yeah, because they have the talent that would suggest that they should. But that being said, they had it last year and it didn't necessarily work out, did it? So we're going to find out soon enough. Let's see. Can we all agree that this season Declan Rice is better than 2014 Xabi? No, I'll never admit that. Sorry, bud. Chelsea's in financial doggy do. Couldn't happen to a better football club. Amen. Amen. All right. So who is going to be the season's talisman? I'm curious to know how you guys feel about that. Who's going to be that guy? Who is going to be the straw that stirs the drink for Spurs this year? Because we really haven't had a talisman since Harry Kane, really. If we're being perfectly honest, right? Who is going to be that dude that is on a week-to-week basis capable of putting this club on its shoulder, scoring a big goal when we need if we're in a situation where the match is tied, we need a late winner, or if we're playing an inferior opponent and that dude's just going to put a team to the sword, who's it going to be? Who's it going to be? I guess I'll ask this. I guess I'll ask this question in a different way. Who's capable? We have Omar here in the TikTok chat. He says Tenali from the midfield, huh? From the midfield. Bird on a Banjo says he's holding out for us to sign a shock 9 like Oshiman. I don't think that's going to happen, personally. I don't know, man. The idea of, I guess you can say an 8 like Tenali being a talisman. Now, I certainly think he's going to be involved in a lot of goal scoring opportunities. I think that is 100% going to be true. But the interesting thing is it's going to have to be it's going to have to be somebody in that attacking core. I do not think Savinho is that guy. And until he actually proves that he can do it at this level and be consistent, I will never buy into that. Could it be one of the strikers, or could it be a combination of a couple players? Let's see. If Gakpo is going to play there, then fine. But Solanke isn't available enough, and Richarlison will be off, I think. Well, Gakpo's not a striker, so that's never going to happen. And by the way, Gakpo's never been a striker. And the idea that you're going to buy him and then put him in a position that he's not, you're taking away from his strength. So if Gakpo comes in, he's the starting left wing. And I don't think Gakpo is going to be the guy that is going to surprise with 20 goals. But that being said, if it is a combination of a couple players, I think that's really what this is coming down to. Like, it's going to have to be a committee of guys that are scoring goals. I don't necessarily think we have. He's played more striker than Tell. Not really, man. Not really. What I will say is that, and by the way, Tell is a striker, but he's also 20. So let's use some common sense here. But Gakpo is never going to be a striker on this team. He's going to be a starting left winger if he plays. But that being said, let's see. Wouldn't we have let Lancashire go without plans to bring in another 9? I don't know. Well, if we get Marmouche through the door, that's your 9, right? But again, Marmouche is, I don't know, man. Like, that's the thing. It's like it's almost in the same situation. I like Marmouche, and I think he's got good end product, but he's never been a consistent starter at the Premier League level. So we just don't necessarily know how that's going to look like, right? Last year, Pep Guardiola was using him in rotations, in a rotational role where he was playing a couple different positions. But that being said, he had end product. But yeah, I can see a scenario where it's going to be a few different people. It could be a combination of Solanke. It could be a combination of Solanke, Marmouche, and Madison. Madison could shock everybody and have a top end season at 30, where he's in that 10ish to 15 goal range. That would be ideal, because I actually think you're going to need it, right? Like, ideally you're going to need 20 goals from your wing positions. So essentially 10 each on the wing. You're probably going to need 10 from your attacking mid, if you can get it. And you're probably going to need 30 from your strikers. That's right there. That's what, 60 goals right there, ideally. And then you're asking your midfield and you're asking your set pieces to fill in the gaps for the last 10 to 15 goals. That right there is a European qualifying team. Maybe it's not good enough to win the Premier League, but that's certainly going to put you in a position where you're winning games and you're also winning big games. And that's at the end of the day, that's exactly what you're looking for, right? Because we don't have a Harry Kane type of player where you're going to get 30 from the guy alone, and he's gonna set up another 10. We don't have a 40 goal involvement type of player. So you're going to be looking from goals by committee. And I think that's actually appropriate, right? So if you can't find a 20 goal striker on the open market, or 25 goal striker, then you have to try to create one in the aggregate. And again, the idea that the last couple seasons, Solanke's been dealing with a lot of injuries. He did have a 15 goal season a couple years ago, 2 seasons ago in his first season at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. So he's got it in his ability. It's just you have to be able to keep him healthy. That's where De Zerbi comes into play, and that's where Omar Mamouche comes into play. Because again, you're going to be able to rotate them. So you might be able to get 25 to 30 goals out of those two guys if it's done correctly. And if they're able to pick up 30 goals between the wing and the attacking midfield position, that's ideal. That right there, you're qualifying for Europe. Let's see. Tell should be a striker like he does. I agree. And that's the interesting thing, Sean, because here's the thing. If we get Cody Gakpo through the door, that's your starting left wing, and Savinho becomes his backup. And that allows you to move Tell back to the striker position. Because really what he needs is what Tell needs is to move, he needs to move back to his natural position, and he also needs to develop. And under a guy like Roberto De Zerbi, that makes me a little bit better. That makes me feel a little bit better with a guy like Matisse Tell. Let's be perfectly honest. Matisse Tell wasn't ready 2 seasons ago when he came in January. Last year, he was played out of position on the left-hand side, and he was also learning on the job in the Premier League as a 20-year-old. I thought he did relatively well under those conditions. I thought he looked a little bit better in the preseason this year. He's added size to his frame, which is absolutely a must in this league. And he's already got that speed. The one thing that he absolutely had to work on is is improving his skill set with the ball at his feet. He looked like he was a little bit better. But that being said, it's like because he's now because he's had essentially a full season playing on the left-hand side, I think that's actually going to make him a little bit better of a striker, having that perspective. I guess if we're improved, if we've improved the midfield and have a plan going forward, that's a big step from last season. I would agree, because De Zerbi is not going to go up there and just admit we're going to lose games. Let's see. A group of 4 with 10 goals each is very much in the mold of De Zerbi. That's exactly right. That's why I don't think we're going to necessarily have that quote unquote talisman. I think it's going to be a goal by committee type of situation, right? Where if we can actually have all four of our attacking players with 10 goals each, and you're getting 15 from your 2 strikers, that's a European qualifying team. Now that might not be the Champions League, but still, Europa League in your first season and even a potential cup, that's a hell of a first season for De Zerbi. Big step from Randall Colomwani. So you weren't a fan of RKM? The Yid Yarmy. Savinho and Marmouche to Spurs would be delicious. Marmouche, definitely. Savinho, not so much, man. Savinho is going to be an expensive mistake. I hope I'm wrong, too, by the way. I really am. I haven't been this out on a player in a very long time for this team. Savinho has been like the first dude that I've been like, next in a very long time. I don't look at him and being like, oh yeah, that's like game changing. It's like, dude doesn't score goals. It's like, okay, great. He can take on a defender. Okay, great. If there's no end product, then he's just taking up space. Like you absolutely need your left winger to be able to not only provide service, but also have end product and score goals as well too. Like I don't give a shit what he does on the ball to beat a defender. If you can't play a ball in or you can't score a goal, I don't care. I just don't care. And Savinho does not score goals at all. At all. Savinho, Kudus, Xavi running at teams, though, is kind of crazy. Okay, cool. Which one is scoring goals? It's like, that is, by the way, that is all great. That is absolutely great. That is absolutely great. But by the way, Mohamed Kudus was a Johan Lang special. Kudus doesn't score goals really at all either. He was halfway decent, providing a few assists there before he got injured. But dude doesn't score goals either. And again, that was the biggest issue last year, was we just did not score goals enough. That allowed us to win games. I hope I'm wrong. And by the way, if I'm wrong, fair enough. Fair enough. I'll be the first one to admit it. And by the way, I hope I'm wrong. Maybe De Zerbi has that cheat code that that's going to be able to unlock these dudes. And I'm hoping that's the case. But I also understand De Zerbi's not a magician. He doesn't have the expecto patronum. You know what I mean? He can definitely try to put him in positions that are going to play to their strengths. But at the end of the day, these players are going to have to prove that they're quality. And by the way, I just don't think Savinho has that finishing quality. Because if he would have played a lot more for City. Let's see. Yeah, by the way, and if we get Gakpo, Savinho is a backup, which I'm actually fine with. Because it gives you cover that allows Odegaard to get back, regain his form, and let him develop again. Because that's actually, when you talk to De Zerbi, he's said it a few times that Matisse Tell and Wilson Odegaard are the future. And I absolutely believe him. Yeah, Savinho 100% will be a backup to Cody Gakpo. Yes, he will. 100%. Gakpo is night and day a much better player. Let's see. One plea. Don't lose your head if we fall to defeat later today. We are evolving. No, I'm not going to lose my head at all. You don't have to worry about that. I'm very apathetic. But here's what I will say is that for this first season under Roberto De Zerbi, and all of this is contingent on us staying healthy. Okay? And again, it's a big if, because the last 2 seasons we've had crippling injury crisis and we have not had the quality backup to be able to withstand it. And as much as I like this team, and I think it's got a lot better depth, the one thing that this team cannot do is have at one stage 11 first-team players out at the same time. We have to be able to avoid that at all costs. That's the first thing I'll say. But that being said, is if things can break right and we actually get some consistent goal scoring, where on a week-to-week basis, we're averaging 3 goals a game, which would be unbelievable. But let's just say 2 to 3. There is a good possibility that we'll get a European spot this year. Now, I don't necessarily think that's going to be a Champions League spot, but in a first season, if you told me that we would get Europa League, a 5th or 6th place finish, I would think that would be a very good start to Roberto De Zerbi's tenure. But I'm going to double down on that and say that I also would like to see a cup run, because I actually think we have the talent where we can get to Wembley at least once. I certainly do believe that, whether that is with the League Cup or whether that's with the Carabao Cup, League Cup or the FA Cup. I think we actually have the talent in order to get that done. The one thing I like about the FA Cup is that, we're going to, by the time the FA Cup rolls around and we get our cup draw or our cup tie, we'll have the January window. So if we absolutely have to improve, and I think we certainly will, because again, we don't have the historic summer window that we've had and then not back it up in January, that I think we're going to be a little bit better off for the FA Cup. But regardless, if we can get to Wembley and we can lift a cup while also being consistent in the Premier League, I think that would be a great first step. Now, granted, De Zerbi is going to want to try to win the league. That's De Zerbi's bar, right? Like that this dude is a maniac when it comes to winning. And me personally, I like it. I don't think we've had I personally do not think we've had this type of coach since Pochettino, where the expectations are on a day-to-day basis, on a week-to-week basis, and that in order for you to be a member of the starting 11, you're going to have to earn it on a week-to-week basis, which means you can't come into training and not take it seriously. So you're going to have to train well. You're going to have to run your nuts off, and you're going to have to battle. And I think all that is going to be, I think that's going to be a net positive to this team. And that, me personally, I think that was one of the biggest problems last year is, number one, there was no buy-in to Thomas Frank. As a matter of fact, they openly mocked Frank behind his back. And so from that standpoint, it's like you can understand how bad we were at portions last season, because they just didn't care, which is a bad look, by the way. And there's a reason why we've gotten rid of a lot of those players. But that for me would be a very good sign that we're heading in the right direction. Talk is cheap, and I know that fans are excited right now. I'm excited as well too. But me personally, I think it's unrealistic to expect a top 4 finish, because unless we lock down another attacker, because I'm sure we're assuming that Marmoush is probably going to be tomorrow, maybe overnight tonight. I don't know. But if we can lock down another attacker, that kind of drastically changes things, because you don't have to rush Kudus back. You don't have to rush Kulusevski back. You can allow those guys to get back on their normal time frame, and you feel a little bit better about that attacking four. And of course, when those guys get back, this attack is going to look good, because Kulusevski is I can't wait for Kulu to get back, because that dude is like the epitome of consistency. Like I have been sad because we haven't had Dejan Kulusevski in well over a year. Shit, we're pushing like 450 days since we've seen Kulusevski. But that dude is awesome. That's your as far as I'm concerned, that's your starting right wing. That would be awesome. That would be awesome. But that is my expectation this season. A Europa League spot I can see, and getting to Wembley in one of the cups, if not winning it. I think that would prove the fan base that we're more than just trying to win the summer transfer window, that we're actually taking steps forward to putting ourselves back into the top 4. Because once we're there, we're just a few transfers away from legit competing for the league. And I've said it on a couple occasions already. I think that within the next 3 years, we'll win the Premier League. I think we're headed in the right direction. And if this team continues to spend, we'll make a really good push for it. And I actually feel like within the next 5 years, we're gonna win multiple trophies. I can actually see that happening. And this will be the first golden era under Enoch. Yeah. So, by the way, tomorrow versus Brentford, the live stream will start at I think about 11:45 a.m. 15 minutes prior to kickoff, as we go over the starting 11s. I think my starting 11 tomorrow is going to be interesting, because we're not going to have Savinho available for tomorrow's game, and I think that Mikey Moore's loan to Germany is still on, but I think he's going to start tomorrow. I have Kinski in goal. This is just my quick starting 11. I have Big Tony Kinski in goal. I have Archie Gray playing off the right backside. I have Van Hecke and Senesi as a center back pairing. Andy Robertson off the left. My midfield pair is Tonali and Fernandez. Let's see. My attacker is going to be my attacking mid. I think it's going to be interesting to see if Madison starts tomorrow. But I know that De Zerbi protected him in the preseason, and allegedly he's trained. He's ready to go. A part of me thinks that it might be Conor Gallagher starting tomorrow at that 10 position, but Would it surprise me if Madison plays tomorrow? It doesn't. I have Matisse Tell starting off the left. I have Mikey Moore off the right, and I have Richie up top. That's my early starting 11 tomorrow. Let me know exactly how you see it. Leave your comments in the chat. That would be awesome. Let's see. Don't get the glazing of Kudus. Good, not exceptional. Yeah, I actually believe that Savinho is the exact same player. He's the exact same player. Let's see. Europa League is worth entering as we can win it. I agree. My focus. Okay, yeah. So it's 12:30. You're right. It is 12:30. So I'll be going at 12:15. 15 minutes before the opening kick. So there you go. So the live stream is going to be tomorrow. I will actually be appearing on the Irish Hotspur tomorrow morning for the pre-match build-up. So that's going to be fun. I did it last year. I'll be back this year. That's going to be fun. And of course, we will have I think this year I'll probably do a weekend wrap up. That would be pretty fun. So we'll see how it goes. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. I do appreciate you guys tuning in. Please make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Also hit the notification bell if you guys are watching on TikTok live. The link is in the description. Take care, guys. Good night.